So welcome to the December edition of Anecdotally. It's great to see you here. We've had a special guest on our podcast. You might have seen it on some of our social media, but we had John Sculley, ex-CEO of Apple and PepsiCo. Come on, Mark interviewed him. What was it like chatting to John Sculley from the CEO of these big companies?
Well, it was a bit intimidating in the preparation for it because he's legendary, but a seriously nice guy.
Yeah,
he was super generous. Very interested in understanding what we were doing and how we would use the interview materials. I mean, like, he's nearly 80 years old, and he was like, if I'm as passionate about what I'm doing as he is about what he's doing, it's a good thing. Very happy.
Yeah. Did you raise the whole sugar water conversation, Steve Jobs?
I did not.
You didn't bring it up.
I missed that opportunity.
But he told lots of good stories.
Yeah, he did. And so what we did is we took 5 of those stories from the overall thing and put them together.
Yep.
One of the things I found really interesting was that he for the last 13 years or so, he's been involved in the healthcare industry, and he talked about the importance of noble cause reinvention in the healthcare industry, because there's so much potential there to take emerging technologies and make them available to millions of people around the world.
I see.
And so he invests a lot, and he talks about he's not ever a passive investor; he's a really active investor.
He's involved.
And he said that this is the most rewarding period of his life.
Right. So when he says noble cause, does he mean sort of moving away from just profit as a motive?
Yeah, so looking for opportunities to take emerging technologies and help founders take those emerging technologies. And I mean, there's absolutely, there's still a profit involved, but the opportunity.
But doing good for people.
Yeah, exactly. So bringing better healthcare to millions, billions, and being financially successful along the way.
So which story did you enjoy most? He did reel off quite a few.
He did.
He's a natural, right?
Yep, totally. Just he talks in events, which is great. So the one that, if I had to make a choice, it was when he talked about the very famous 1983 Super Bowl ad. And so in October 1983, Apple was still months away from launching the Macintosh. And Business Week ran the front page and picture of a computer, and the winner is IBM.
Right.
And apparently
that would have pissed people off.
That did not go down very well for the Apple folks, because they're announcing the winner before the races even commenced,
right? Because
they hadn't launched the Macintosh yet. So they were thinking, what can we do to change this? And of course, one of the big things in 1984 was that 1984 was the year that George Orwell's famous book.
I read it in 1984. It was a big seller in that year.
I imagine. And the idea was, they ran the ad, or they developed an ad with Cheat Day, the Apple advertising firm, and the concept was, and if you've seen the ad,
I'm sure you can Google it.
If you haven't seen it, it's well worth seeing. So they took that idea of George Orwell's 1984, where everything was controlled by Big Brother and the thought police. And they thought, well, IBM is Big Brother, and it doesn't have to be that way. So the whole ad was anyway. It's not the ad that I was interested in that story.
Right.
It was the fact that in response to the Business Week article, they went, we have to do something different. So they developed this new ad, and then they went to the board and said, "Here's our ad," and they showed it to the board, and the board went, "Well, you won't be doing that then." Because it talked nothing, the board was saying it doesn't say anything about the technology, what people can do with the Macintosh, how it allows you to be creative, how fast it is. Didn't talk about any of that.
None of the features.
None of the features. All it had was the girl running through all the grey
suited
men throwing the hammer at the screen, and then the screen exploding, and then in 1984. on the 24th of January 1984, Apple launches the Macintosh, and 1984 won't be like 1984. Right, so that's the only thing they had. And apparently the board said, Sculley said the board will look at him because he was supposed to be the adult.
The adult in the room, because they're all young, weren't they?
They're all young.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, this is going to change. And it did. It totally changed the way Apple was perceived. The board said sell the advertising space because that was $1 million.
Yes.
But Sculley said that he didn't try too hard, and they ran the ad. And it might have cost them $500,000 to make and $1 million to run the ad, but that ad was picked up by news agencies around the world and played hundreds and hundreds of times, and they estimate they got $45 million worth of free advertising.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was excellent. I remember that ad well, actually. It was surprising. And it was not easy for Australians to see that ad because, of course, we didn't get to see the Super Bowl, and so you had to sort of dig around and wait for these replays that were done on, other television shows.
Yeah. And it was, even though we didn't get that, that ad was still talked about in Australia. So it's like one of those. I think it was the ad of the decade, or
could have been
something like that.
Yeah,
anyway, it's very cool.
Anyway, it was great. We had a good time. So jump on the podcast, and you will be able to listen in on John Sculley telling those stories, and then Mark and I doing what we normally do, and that is sharing a few thoughts on how you might be able to use those stories to put them in your own repertoires, right? Story repertoires. Well, I think that's probably a good time to wrap it up. Have a great 2020. Hope it's much better than 1984. We're going to head off on a bit of a break. We'll be back on the 6th of January, and we look forward to chatting with you in 2020 vision. Bye for now.
Have a fabulous festive season.